WCW Mayhem is an average wrestling game. It is probably the definition of average. It is good enough, it has decent controls, the graphics are fine, it's lacking some of the features that would make it a great wrestling game, but it doesn't really need those because it's perfectly fine the way it is. The gameplay is pretty good, it's easy to learn, and the game is fun to play. It is a little strange that you need to win every championship in the main game, where you don't really have to do that, or at least you don't see people doing that when you're watching the TV show. But I guess it makes the game more fun. At least I liked it in some cases. Others, it seemed a little weird, like when I was playing as Bret Hart, and they're making me play for the WCW Television Championship. I just don't think that Bret Hart should have been competing for that. It would also be weird if it was Hogan or any of the other big names, but whatever. There are a lot of game modes in WCW Mayhem. While it is not on par with something like Attitude and SmackDown, it's still a very fun game. The N64 version is just as good as the PS1 version. There's not a whole lot of difference between the two. In my favorite mode, you pick a wrestler and you climb up the ranks for various championships. It's a fun way to learn the game and see the other wrestlers on the roster. Mayhem has a pretty big roster of wrestlers, so there's a lot you can do in this. There are a bunch of unlockables that you can get. It's pretty much the definition of an average wrestling game at this time. It isn't amazing, but it definitely isn't WCW Thunder or WCW Nitro. The roster is divided up into different factions, which seems a little weird to me. You have WCW, then you have the NWO Black and White, then the NWO Wolfpack, the Horsemen, and then the Cruiserweights, and a Hardcore division. It's kind of weird. I don't really get why they did that. You can also create your own faction in this, which is kind of nice at times. There are run-ins in the game which feel kind of odd at times. Every once in a while they'll make sense, but for the most part they really don't. This is a fun game for what it is. I like to see how these games stack up, and right now this one is better than both Nitro and also the other WCW games I played, like Backstage Assault. It's fine, but it could be better. I like how the game looks. It misses some of the things that I enjoyed about the PS1 version, but the N64 version, it looks pretty good for what it is. I only really have minor issues with the graphics and some of the more repetitive things that you see in it. The character models, animations, and ring all look great. WCW Mayhem is a great-looking game, and it is better looking than some of the other WCW games, especially Backstage Assault, which is just kind of weird since that game came out afterwards. I like it as much as the SmackDown games in some cases. I do like that there are ring entrances, even if those do get rather repetitive, especially since you're seeing the same pyro over and over again. It's either the weird little cloud of whatever that comes up, or the fountains. The only thing that changes is the color on those. It is cool to see the different rings that you fight in, especially the different arenas, the different sets. That's all really cool. The thing that I don't like is that the footage from the WCW TV shows has had to be stripped out of the games. Well, this is disappointing. It's pretty understandable given the technical restrictions of the N64. It doesn't take much away from the game, but it does kind of impact how I felt about it. It hurts the game a little bit, but not as much as something like having bad controls would. I do like the ring entrances. I think it's kind of cool that they're all there. But after you've been playing this game for like an hour or two, you're going to get kind of sick of it because it's the same ring entrance. A few of them have a different animation or something like that along with them, but by and large, it's the exact same thing. This game and many other wrestling games don't look as good as their PS1 counterparts. The in-game graphics really aren't a huge problem, but for some reason, they didn't look as good as the PS1 graphics, and that's probably just nostalgia talking, but I was not really as impressed with these as I was with the PS1. They would have looked fine for the time, but something seemed a little weird about them to me. Playing this one did make me want to go back and look at the PS1 game again, just because I wanted to kind of compare to see how they actually looked. I think the graphics are fine, though. They're not anything special. They're what you should expect for the time. And yeah, they're pretty decent. They get the job done. WCW Mayhem on the N64 is a good game with solid controls. It's got a large roster, there's plenty of things to unlock, it's an easy game to learn. There's not really too much else I can say about it. It's a good game that just isn't as good as some of the other WCW games like World Tour or WCW Revenge, and it's not as good as some of the kind of higher-end WWE games, or WWF games, I should say, like SmackDown or WrestleMania 2000 or stuff like that. It's a perfectly fine game that I wish they had built on, but instead the developer decided to go to a different development team, and yeah, we got Backstage Assault instead of a Mayhem 2 or something like that. So this was kind of the last good WCW wrestling game. And for whatever reason, EA decided they weren't going to go back to Kodiak. They wanted to move on to someone else. It's a little odd. So the next game that I look at, I'm not really sure. I'm probably going to go with one of the other WCW games, and we'll just see where it goes from there. There are quite a few on the N64 I've never played before, so yeah, I'm looking forward to those. Anyway, that's going to wrap things up. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.